So let's move on then. Here we are. We're now going to look at DNA and polypeptide synthesis. So we've talked about mitosis and meiosis. We've talked about how DNA replication occurs. Um, before in that interface, before we even start the whole process, DNA has been replicated so that we can then start the process. Now we are going to look at how DNA replication occurs. Now DNA replication, obviously it occurs so that we can make new cells in the body, and it also occurs so that we can actually make new proteins, because our body needs proteins. All right, so that's where DNA, so replication and polypeptide synthesis match. So now we're going to look at why is polypeptide synthesis important. So polypeptide synthesis. So basically, let's have a look. This is, we'll talk about proteins today. Okay, so what I've done is, so I have not gone through, so I've not included translation and transcription in this process, in the slides today, because those are two very, definitely, like there's a lot going on with these two processes. So I would recommend that you go ahead and research that a bit more. I'll talk you through what's happening in it, but because of obviously time, because I don't want to squish too much in and then have you feel unsure about anything. So I've not quite included transcription and translation. Those are processes that take a couple of lessons, you'll notice in class as well, to wrap your head around. And I would recommend like pick up a whiteboard marker and draw things out. Really helps. And watching videos, animated videos, which show you the process really good. However, if you do want to go through it this week and you also want to see like how we've gone through it, I've gone through it in my HSC biology revision lecture, but do note that I've actually gone through it with the context that students have already learnt it. It's more of a revision based than like teaching it initially, so keep that in mind. But this is what we'll do. Let me quickly pull up another screen. Okay. So essentially our body needs protein, right? And the way we make protein is through the process of transcription and translation. So I'm not gonna, again, like it is a technical process and I'm not gonna try and explain it and then leave you confused. That's not what I want to do. So instead I'm gonna just tell you in simple words what is happening, and then I'm gonna encourage you to go ahead and do a bit more research on your own. I definitely watch those YouTube videos. Again, Amoeba Sisters have really good videos on transcription and translation, so definitely check those out. So let's have a look at what this process is. So our body needs proteins, right? So our body needs proteins, and the way these proteins are made is, so you know how we have our DNA? Basically, our DNA codes for those proteins. So our DNA codes for those proteins, and what we do is when we need our proteins, we open up our DNA. So there is a special enzyme that comes through, opens up our DNA, we replicate it. No, sorry, oops. Look, so that's DNA replication. So what transcription does is after your DNA has been replicated, what will happen is, think of transcription as like the name transcription. You're writing a transcript. So you're copying over the DNA material into RNA material. And the difference between DNA and RNA is that DNA has deoxyribose sugar. It's made up of deoxyribose sugar. So this is the structure of the DNA. Where is it? So there's a sugar, and then you've got your phosphate, and what am I missing? Deoxy. No, deoxy has 6. This is the phosphate, and then it's attached then to a nucleotide. Alright. So don't worry about that actually. Let me just erase it because those drawings are hideous. So please excuse me for that. But let me go again. So transcription is basically like when you're writing a transcript. So we've got our DNA, we're going to write the recipe that we need on the DNA. All right, we're going to write the recipe that we need from the DNA, but we're not going to think of it like the recipes on the computer and I'm writing it on paper. That's what's happening. So I'm not writing from computer to computer. I'm writing from computer to paper. So if my recipe is on DNA, sorry, is in the form of DNA, my computer, I'm going to write it in the form of RNA, my paper. All right, and then I'm going to take that paper to the ribosomes, which is my kitchen in the nucleus. Okay, I'm going to not in the nucleus, in the cell. I'm going to take my paper, I've written my recipe in RNA, and I'm going to take it to the ribosomes, my kitchen, and I'm going to go into my kitchen and I'm going to cook. Now when I cook, basically I am going to, I'm going to cook, and once I cook, I'm going to get my food. I'm going to get the proteins that I need. So with this process, basically your body only makes the proteins that it needs. Alrighty, so it's only taking, it's not opening up your whole DNA and making proteins of everything. Is only opening parts where it needs the specific proteins. So that's what transcription does. In transcription, we use mRNA. So mRNA is the one that's going to go to the DNA and it's going to copy over from the DNA. Alright, so it's going to copy. So this is this is the guy who's going to go over and go from computer to paper. All right, and then we're going to go to the kitchen, and in the kitchen my helping hand's going to be tRNA. Okay, tRNA, that's my helping hand, that's my sous chef. The tRNA is actually going to put the elements together and give me my proteins. So again, the reason I'm not going through the whole process is because we could have a whole 2-hour lecture just in that process. And don't want to confuse you. I just want you to know that these two processes exist, and I would recommend, before you go ahead do any research, watch Amoeba Sisters YouTube video on it. And the reason I'm saying their channel specifically is because like it's straight to the point, it's animation for first time understanding, it's really good. And then after that you can start looking at other videos that may have a bit of extra information as well. That's why I was saying just stick with that for now. But this is what is happening. All right, so these are the two processes that come into use when we actually want to make proteins from our DNA. So that's that. Now, why do we actually need proteins? We need proteins for support and structure in our body. Actin is a filament. So actin is important with your muscles. Muscles are made up of actin and myosin, so that's where actin is important. Enzymes, helicase. So helicase, I mentioned it briefly and then I thought, oops, I don't want to confuse you guys, but helicase is the enzyme, for example, that when your DNA is being replicated, it's helicase that opens up your DNA. Because remember, it's like really tightly wound, like your DNA is super tightly wound, right? So it's the helicase enzyme that comes up and opens up the DNA. And so many other enzymes in your bodies that are made up of proteins, we need protein for that. Antibodies, all our antibodies are immunoglobulins. They are made up of proteins. Proteins are important for transport and for storage, and they're also, our hormones are proteins. So all our hormones are proteins. So growth hormone is protein, for example. So messengers are really important. So essentially now what happens is that once we have gone through the process of translation, we get what is known as a polypeptide chain. Now, a polypeptide chain is made up of amino acids, right? So it's a chain of polypeptides like this. This is exactly what a protein this is like the structure of a protein. And they're made at the ribosome, all right? Remember, the ribosome was my kitchen. They're made at the ribosome. And in a process called protein synthesis. All right, sorry, polypeptide or protein, you can call it both actually. Polypeptide synthesis. Polypeptides are these, Synthesis is, making something. So we're making polypeptides. And so these polypeptides then fold several times to form a 3D structure. And that's the protein that we use. So every protein sequence, so this is an amino acid, this is a polypeptide chain. Then this is the sort of initial shape. So this is actually what a full protein looks like. Alright, so it can interact with other proteins and it can perform different functions. This is what protein looks like, as you can see here. That's actually what protein looks like. Alright, so I would encourage you to go ahead and look at transcription and translation and DNA replication. But the reason we didn't cover that was because I kind of, again, didn't want to rush through anything. I wanted to give you that chance to actually absorb everything slowly, okay? Because those three topics can be can be like a topic of their own, honestly. So that's why it's really important to have a look at that. But remember, the whole process is happening so that we can end up with protein, so that we make proteins. And proteins are really important for cell structure and function. Really, really important. So let's move on. If you have any questions, please ask. But again, we'll encourage you to take it nice and easy. This is basically the crash course of the whole module in 2 hours. So it's not supposed to give you everything. It's supposed to set you out on that path. And like I said, hopefully check out those resources, and they will help you so much. And I say that from experience, helped me lots. Alright, because I'm a visual learner, so just seeing it all like really helps. So let's move on. Let me just grab a drink of water. It's really hot. Really, really hot. Okay, let's move on then.